So I think what makes me angry is when people lack ownership in getting things done. Uh, and it's perfectly okay to if people are lacking competency, uh, but not having an attitude to get the shit done is something that affects me as an individual. Maybe working as on a broader objective of, let's say, for me as a one of the founders of Workindia, providing meaningful livelihood to the 23.7 crore blue collar workforce across India is a mission, and if people are not aligned to it, then it actually affects. So lacking ownership and getting things done, or getting the shit done, is very important.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Angry Coach. Today, I have the rare distinction and privilege of having Moiz along with me. Moiz is the co-founder of Workindia. It's a platform that aims to provide jobs to the blue-collared workers in our country. I let Moiz speak a lot about him and his work. But before that, let me also share. Moiz has been a entrepreneur at heart, and it's been such a fantastic journey that he's had so far. Uh, let's give it up for Moiz and let's welcome into this episode. Moiz, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Vivek, for inviting me for the podcast.
Moiz, as we get started, I have a question for you. And I'd love to know what makes you angry.
Yeah. So I think what makes me angry is when people lack ownership in getting things done. Uh, and it's perfectly okay to if people are lacking competency, uh, but not having an attitude to get the shit done is something that affects me as an individual. Maybe working as on a broader objective of, let's say, for me as a one of the founders of Workindia, providing meaningful livelihood to the 23.7 crore blue collar workforce across India is a mission, and if people are not aligned to it, then it actually affects. So lacking ownership and getting things done, or getting the shit done, is very important. And in a startup environment, uh, a go-getter attitude or the urgency of getting things is extremely important. Uh, and if there is a person with a lower energy or a poor attitude, uh, basically underperforms and demotivates the team around him, leading to a creeping of incompetency, uh, and becomes counterproductive. So that's something that is not good for building a high performance or a self organizing culture that we want to build around, and get the mission done, mission of providing the livelihood. So yeah, I
Wow.
think what I think about ownership is simple. Basically, driven towards, let's say, a cause or an objective, uh, and ability to handle failures maturely, uh, and basically not shy away from accountability is very important. Uh, and basically, people who reflect positivity during the tough times is important. In a very stringent or a very fast paced environment, these qualities help you get things done. So when people lack that particular ownership or bias for action, that affects me as an individual and makes me angry.
Excellent. So, as a founder, as an owner, this lack of ownership that people demonstrate at work, And you specifically called out that they have the skill, but the attitude of getting things done, the attitude of moving forward from failures, or the absence of all of this really gets makes you angry. Is that correct?
Yep. Yes.
I think that's
It,
a
it
very fair point. Yeah. I'm sure so many leaders, founders can relate to you on this one particular topic. Okay. Could you give us some examples that you have experienced where people have either not shown ownership or shown ownership, and what difference did that make to you?
So before we get into the example, I think or the instance, what happens in a startup environment is, and everything is fast paced, and by the nature that startup, it's an experiment, uh,
Yes.
and when an experiment becomes successful, that's when a business is created out of it.
Correct.
So at times experiments tend to fail, uh, and having the commitment towards a failing experiment or trying things out is important. So and if there is an additional bandwidth that goes in, let's say, doing a follow up versus realizing the impact of the experiment that you are trying to do, uh, that's a problem. That's the core of the problem. That's where ownership or bias for action, transparency comes into picture. Uh, yeah. So personally, as an individual, I thrive on the energy, and it compounds when the same energy is reflected back, and it demotivates when we collaborate. Let's say when I collaborate with a low intent person. For instance, back in time, I had a team member who had very high skills, knew his shit well, better than, let's say, me. Uh, the only thing is he lacked the focus and the urgency of getting things done, and which led to, let's say, delay in execution, or and then I could tell that that person genuinely was not caring about his own objective. Uh, so basically, that affected the team around us, and the incompetence started creeping in. So it's a very minute things that start affecting the uh, entire chain, by having that one person who is demotivated. So that important, that how do we ensure that motivation levels and sense of urgency can be driven from the people who are working on an object.
How do we make sure that that motivation, that sense of urgency continues remaining with people? Is that right? Now,
Yeah.
as a founder, I am sure you experience this day in and day out, right? Have you developed some tips, tricks that others can benefit from?
So basically, one of the things that is very important uh, uh, to achieve, let's say, ownership. We can speak about all the values every time, but it has to be a person's priority, how he wants to live his life.
Very fair.
If he wants, I think being passionate about your work or the art is important. Let's say, if I have to talk about the founders of Workindia, however difficult time that we have gone through, the ups and downs, the funding winter, or whatever it is, providing meaningful livelihood has bound this team together. Very similar to that, let's say, an engineer who is working on his own art or own work has to, maybe for him it makes sense to build a scalable system which can handle millions of people, and that has to motivate that person. For all this to happen, there has to be a micro step that needs to be taken by that person to reach the ultimate goal.
Correct.
And somewhere the most important thing is to find your own personal motivation. No one can teach you. I can motivation in my thing, but it's context specific. So, four things that maybe if I have to write a prescription would be was urgency of getting things done wherever you are in your life, in your home, when you are, let's say, shifting to a new house, urgency of getting your house done is the very simple example till the point where you may be leading a 100-member team and you want to get four priorities done at the same pace so that we can move forward. Uh, the second thing that I would want, or which I prescribe is, I think, fail fast and course correct. Uh, there is, in our Indian mentality, we have been brought up with uh, failure being very bad. I think we need to understand that failure is okay. Let's fail and fail fast, because when in a startup environment or in a company which is cash strapped, every day is important, and losing money uh, uh, is something that that's that makes you so what is important is we are able to identify what is the failure and we course correct it as fast as possible. And I think humility should be imparted, because it's perfectly okay to say that I screwed up. It's okay. Uh, and I think one of the things that I used to face is overthinking. When I was facing difficulties, let's say, across my journey at Workindia. So focus, do not overthink and just focus way ahead. That's important. I think make mistakes and fail.
Mistakes.
Uh, but carelessness should be avoided. A lot of time when we speak about urgency of getting things done or ownership, people say that people think that it's okay to be careless to get an objective done. That's not something that should be that I would prescribe, because uh, that's going to affect you as an individual and the company as an individual, as a organization. So, yeah, these are few things that if bought in one bouquet, then things can be sorted out, or maybe it will work out.
I think very, very well put, Moise. Thank you for sharing. So I've got urgency to act. I have also got comfort with failure. Fail fast, fail quickly, correct? And then I've got focus on the way ahead versus just looking at or trying to be play safe. Focus on the way ahead and try to solve things for the future. And the last point that you mentioned was learn from your mistakes and keep moving ahead. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And I think as a startup, these are some things that you would thrive on. And I can definitely pick up a lot of large organizations who can benefit from the exact same values as well. I also loved, your earlier statement, which is somewhere a person needs to have his or her purpose identified and solved for, because that's what's going to continue leading them in their career or in their journey. Right. Now, I'm
Yeah.
curious, Moise, at your organization, at Work India, how do these things play out?
So I think one of the things that we are focusing on from a company standpoint is how do we ensure that, uh, let's say, an individual and a leader or a mentor, there are two parts to it. There is one who will be leading a charter, and there will be one person who will be executing a charter. So I'll talk about a person who is leading a charter versus a person who is executing the charter. So we spoke about the execution piece, that you have to have the sense of urgency, fail fast, uh, don't shy away from failure, uh, have your personal motivation. I'll talk about how are we trying to solve this problem. Uh, so one of the things is a lot of time when people want to have a sense of ownership in their team, uh, and you find that it's not happening. First, understand why this is. What is the root cause of this issue? Is it a competency issue or is it an attitude issue? Then let's say you figure out that the person is not able to get a job done, जिसको हम JTBDs बोलते हैं, jobs to be done.
Correct.
Then try find out or try coaching them and see if enough progress is made. Over here also, as a manager or leader or mentor, you have to understand that fail fast is important here. A lot of time, personally, I had this blind spot, and I see a lot very similar blind spot across the teams that I work with. That people try to overinvest on people. They feel a responsibility or accountability for a person who is failing. So maybe that's important, that invest on people and build upon the context. Give them enough context about why we are doing what we are doing. And somewhere if you give enough context to people, generally people get aligned. And it's important that as a leader or mentor, nudging people and identifying their strengths and their motivation is important. And then accelerating or putting up accelerating it is important. If it's an attitude is an issue, then I think providing constructive feedback or criticism is important. And I'll talk about this particular topic. A lot of time, what people face is, I personally don't believe in sugarcoating, but at a point of time, I used to get a lot more angry. And anger has, as an individual, has affected me in my career as well. And one of the things that I learned is sugarcoating versus constructive criticism. So I'll talk about sugarcoating in bit of a detail. It leaves people confused. It's worse than letting someone go, because now you are bringing in an incompetence in the team. So and slowly and steadily it creeps into the entire team, and everyone is trying to just please people around so that they don't have to do a hard conversation. And I think constructive criticism is one way to avoid this. Is it has to be forward looking. So if we are able to give a feedback which is more forward looking, and give that person few steps which are what is expected out of them, or what is the context that we want to bring in, then we have the years. Once we have the years, then 70% of the job is done. Now 30% is something that he will have to invest. You cannot do everything, so he has to invest that what has gone wrong, how do I correct my course, what is expected out of me, and how do I course correct myself.
It's a very fair point. Yes.
So yeah, so a lot of time what I've seen is generally leaders who get negative about a person or a process, and initially were positive about it, and that's confusing for people. People learn skills, but attitude remains the same. So it's one of the things that I had read in some book which spoke about hire for an attitude, train for skills.
Correct.
So that's I think it depends on what context that you are working in, but it's important that we are able to assess people on their attitude and get them on board to become partners in our vision that we want to built for, and that comes from context, reiterating the context, and able to basically nudge the motivation and the strengths of people.
Fantastic, Moiz. So what I'm gathering is, first of all, identify the core behaviors you want to pick up, right? Give people enough context and then coach them, nudge them, and accelerate the change that the people have. I also love the sugarcoating statement that sugarcoating is probably worse than getting a person out, because in a way you have restricted that person's development completely and retained him in the system, which is damaging both the person and the system. So you'd rather give constructive criticism to an individual upfront than sugarcoat something. Right. Right. Moiz, are
Yeah.
you able to hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, excellent. Because your video has just gone off, but that's all right. Boys, let me continue this conversation a little further. And I'd like for our audience to know more about you and the work that you do in your organization, Workindia.
So, as an individual, I graduated from an institute in Mumbai, which is Sardar Patel Institute, uh, and then joined a company, an MNC, for 2 years. Worked over there as a software in their software services section. Post that, I would like to speak about the how I got connected to Workindia. So I was a training placement coordinator in my college, and there was this girl that came after her. At that point of time, I didn't have a job, but I used to manage the entire project, manage the entire placement sessions. So at that point of time, she got placed in a dream job, and she came in all tears and said, "You're doing a good job." And that was very aha moment for me. I felt good internally, and at that point of time, it felt like LinkedIn type के company में कभी काम करते. I think that's it. And then we were all looking out for job to just get ourselves placed, etc., etc. And then the life moved on. Somewhere 2 years down the line, I got a call from my batchmate, and he spoke about this idea of providing meaningful livelihood to 23.7 crore blue collar workforce across India. And at that point of time, I could not connect dots very immediately, and I said, "This looks very good to me." And I had done a few small, stints in entrepreneurship, which were running a streaming platform, etc., which was Live Mintra. So at that point of time, I joined, and somewhere down the line, I realized that, oh, this is what I wanted to be part of. And every time, so what we are trying to solve is a blue collar worker, when loses his job or when he wants to upgrade his job, it's very important that he finds the job faster.
Correct.
And in a traditional market, it used to be an apply flow, or you apply for a job and you wait for a recruiter to reach out to you. In such cases, when you are a bread winner for your house, and you have lost your job, every day matters. Not having blue collar worker work in the typical range of 7,000 to 30,000 rupees in salary. So every day is important. Every day making that 500,000 rupees a day is important. And so having a instant gratification is important. Let's say on the candidate side or the worker side, and on the employer side, they want to, every time, let's say a Xerox person, a Xerox owner, shop owner does not have a person to flip the pages, he loses his revenue.
Correct.
So that lost revenue is the lost opportunity, and he wants that person to get hired faster.
Correct.
And that's where what we are trying to solve is, how do we ensure that a worker looking out for a job gets a uh, a better job. And how do we cater to the employer side who can, let's say, uh, get the candidates or the workers faster? And that's where we are trying to build a marketplace around it. What I do at Workindia, I joined in Workindia as the first full-time developer, and then moving forward, fast forwarded to 2023. Today, I lead engineering from the strategic direction, uh, and take care of the backend systems which are responsible for running the entire platform. Uh, uh, and I also take care of the fraud detection engine. So one of the problem statements that we are trying to solve here is when a worker is looking out for a job faster, he gets trapped via a middleman, which we call it as consultant or a job broker. Maybe in United States or other parts of the world, it's a job brokers are considered good, but in the market, which is a job-starved market, they tend to take advantage from the candidate by charging them money and not giving them the job that they have promised. And we are trying to eliminate that layer and bring in the transparency across the system.
Wow. Wow. So, what I hear from you is you are eliminating the fraudulent job consultants who perhaps take money from these very gullible segment of our audience to whom the cash flow is very important, and eliminating that and helping provide people meaningful employment. Is that correct?
Yep, yep.
And very specifically, you are taking care of the tech stack, the entire development of this particular platform, right? Moiz, in this journey that you've had, what are some highs and what are some lows that you have personally experienced yourself?
So I'll talk about lows first because I keep on speaking about this to my team is as you grow in your role, the number of, let's say, the F word increases and more times you get appreciated goes down.
Right.
So a lot. So when we started this company, we faced a challenge of we went with a very traditional model of doing recruitment, and somewhere we felt, yeah, ये model तो चलेगा नहीं. And that's where we pivoted the company back to an automated model, and we only focused on how do we get one person hired without a person involved in the entire transaction, without Workindia from a people standpoint or operations standpoint involved. How do we make an automated platform? That was a time when we hardly had 4 or 5 months runway, and we are pivoting the company. That was one stint. Very recently, we faced a very similar challenge back in 2021. So these have been few lows from a company standpoint where we were all affected, and from an engineering standpoint. I always dreamt about I used to read stories about Instagram, how 3 developers built the first layer platform and then scaled it to millions, etc. And somewhere being blindsided or focused on just getting things done on a day-to-day basis, somewhere in 2019, we scaled up very fast. And suddenly the system started breaking. And that was a very difficult time. It made me realize that not investing towards the forward-looking piece has led to the systems going down. So that's when was enough. Okay, let's focus on building competencies and making the systems resilient. And that's been since then, where we did the migration from, let's say, monolith to microservices, separated the concerns, etc., etc., etc. That we tried doing it and started adopting the chaos philosophy. Maybe the chaos philosophy that was initially coined by Netflix and the other large companies, we started bringing in those practices which will ensure that we are ready. Things are going to break. It's okay. Things will break. We should be ready to ensure that how do I control my blast radius. So that's been my focus for last 2.5 years.
Wow, wow. So adopting the chaos theory, knowing that things will break, how do I continue building up despite all of that? Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Amazing, amazing. What's the vision that you and your organization is pursuing? I mean, what will an ideal world look like for you?
The ideal world would look like. So the first thing, there is a lot of emphasis on meaningful livelihood.
Hmm.
Today, people are making money by their skills or by their labor or work.
Right.
How do we make it meaningful for them? Which is how do the ideal state would be everyone is happy. Uh, People can't be happy. That's the inherent way the humans are designed. But how do we ensure that people are able to discover uh, the ideal job for them? And that's an end state. And maybe let's say operating at the India or the global level, or maybe operating in the uh, what we call it as the third world nations, where it's a job starved, not third world but developing
Nations.
economy or nations, is something that looks like a target to be chased right now.
Right. I think that's a very, very fair point. So, what I'm hearing from you, one is make sure that people get meaningful livelihoods. And the second thing that I'm understanding from you is being able to scale up the organization, not just at an India level for sure. And then, can we take this model to other developing nations also and help them leverage this? Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Moiz, this is a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Thank you so much for enriching this. As we wrap up, what would your top one or two tips be to any individual who is hearing this particular podcast?
I think it's important. The best way to let's say drive ownership, if you are a leader mentor, is lead by example.
Hmm.
So that's something that it makes greater impact to share by example than by preaching. Uh, for and then second would be, let's say, an urgency is important, but realizing an impact is very more important. Hence, fail faster, correct the course, and do reflection. Uh, and I think never penalize people for trying. Intent matters. Instead, the approach has to be towards uh, reflecting upon the process or the root cause of a problem, and then course correct and see the progress. Uh, and just to leave the conversation, it is very simple for it to be an animal, which is to hunt, eat, and repeat. But being human is just more than that. So more than hunt, eat, and repeat. That's it.
Thank you so much. To be a human is a lot more than hunting, eating, and repeating. Moiz, it's been a fantastic conversation. My very best to you and Work India as you continue to provide meaningful livelihoods to the 23 odd crores that audience that you are looking at. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Vivek, for inviting me for the podcast.
So we're going